All right.
So we're live. Hello, everybody.
At least semi-live.
It is always
Matter of degree.
always better to be semi. Well, in the worlds of fantasy fiction and speculative fiction, you can be any of the various states between living and dead. You know, you've been in that playground for many years.
That's true.
It is true. And even in the world of Game of Thrones, anyone who's dead doesn't stay dead for very long. So, you know, it's like...
Well, it works the other way around in anything by Joss Whedon.
Yeah,
And it also works in a silly show that's one of my great delights and addictions this year, Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, yes, that's a fun show.
I know I can't stay away from it in spite of the fact that so much of it doesn't make sense. I just like it.
I love it too. I love it too.
That's, yeah,
I've got a crush on Nicole Behari anyway.
yeah, she's lovely.
Isn't she though?
On my navigation device on my phone, I changed it to his voice, Ichabod Crane, and he provided his voice on the navigation it's the Waze app. So instead of the female computer voice saying, in 600 feet, turn left, which you're used to hear, now you hear Ichabod Crane saying, in 600 naught feet, turn your carriage to the left.
Splendid.
It was so funny. I just love that. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that you guys know who I'm talking to, but for those of you who've just joined our live show, welcome again to our weekly live cast, Torn Tuesday. I am standing here in lovely Krikorian Theaters down in Buena Park. We're right across the boat from Knott's Berry Farm, which is right up there, right outside the window. And we're here with Peter S. Beagle, who is the author of many great and wondrous tales. Most famously, in our neck of the woods, he's very well known for writing The Last Unicorn and, of course, the film that was created by Rankin and Bass Animation back in the 70s. And we love Rankin and Bass because they did the first Hobbit cartoon adaptation in 1977. And Peter Beagle also very well known to Lord of the Rings fans because he co-wrote the screenplay for the Ralph Bakshi United Artists release of the Lord of the Rings.
Co-wrote hell, I wrote the sucker.
You did? Oh, he rewrote that whole thing. Yes, sir, but bully for you.
But as it may be.
Yes, yes. And as I remember you saying, because we interviewed you for our documentary, Ringers, you said it was the only game in town. And that was, at the time, that was the big game. That was the big fish in town to write that script.
Are we streaming? I always wanted to be streaming.
We are streaming live. Yes.
Goodness.
Everyone? Hi, everybody. We have chatters in the room.
Yeah, we got 50 viewers right now.
Oh, excellent. Oh, we're on our way to 150 in the next few minutes. Shall we go and find ourselves a quiet nook where we can...
Very good at quiet looks.
Yeah, let's go find a quiet nook, shall we?
Indeed.
This would be fun.
Right there.
Yeah, this is excellent. Ah, very nice. Oh, even better. So that we can actually hear ourselves without the cacophony of promotional items out in the theater lobby. So everything looked good? Our lights are good?
And the stairs are comfortable.
And the stairs are clean and comfortable. This is nice. So, hi, Peter Beagle. So exciting to see you as you continue this aggressive nationwide tour of taking the beautifully restored version of The Last Unicorn to theaters everywhere around the country. You've been there and back again, haven't you?
Yes, and sometimes I feel at my age that I've not been there and back again, but done a victory lap or an exhaustive lap around the block.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because it goes on. People have asked me, well, just how long is this tour going on? And my ordinary response is, for bloody ever. Which is what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah, I bet. Are you nearing the end? Are you going to extend and go to other countries, other places?
I can't speak for other countries, but I do believe that it's scheduled to go on until something like April of next year.
Yes. What? All through 2015?
I believe so.
And more to 2016?
This is assuming that I survive.
Peter, of course you're going to survive. Of course we're going to survive.
Well, with the proper amount of good beer, I might make it.
Yes. Oh, speaking of good beer, one of my favorite memories with Peter Beagle was him introducing me to my favorite Mexican imported beer, the Negra Modelo.
Ah, you like that?
I loved it. I loved that beer, and I had never tried it before. I've always had basic things like Corona, but I've never had a dark beer from Mexico that I really liked.
Old reliable.
Old reliable.
Without
yes.
doubt.
Yeah, when in doubt, that's true. Well, gosh, so many things that we have talked about before. We'll cover a few little bits of historical trivia for new fans who are just joining us. Back in the late 70s, the Ralph Bakshi animated Lord of the Rings needed to be redone, and it needed to be redone quite thoroughly and quite well. And so, because of the popularity of The Last Unicorn, they approached you. Was it Ralph Bakshi himself?
It was Saul Zentz.
It was Mr. Zentz
It was
himself.
Mr. Zentz.
All right.
Yes, well.
And he said, redo this.
He said that they needed a consultant on the script.
Yes.
I read the script and said, you really don't need a consultant. You need a whole new script.
Mm-hmm.
And he discussed it with my agent at the time. Said, well, they'd already shot their screenwriting budget on someone else. But if I would undertake to do the job on a consultant salary, then when they came to the second part of The Lord of the Rings, I would be paid more than my usual salary to make up for it.
Which didn't happen.
Yes. And I did rewrite that. I can never remember whether I wrote it 8 or 9 times.
Wow.
Something like that. I wrote it in perfectly charming circumstances, the Claridge's Hotel in London. And there were definite compensations in that sense. What I like to remember is making friends with the actor, now long gone, Peter Woodthorpe, who played Dolph.
Yes, that was great.
He was a wonderful actor, and he was the definitive Gollum.
Yes.
And we hit it off immediately, perhaps because he was the first and almost only man who treated me like a sex object. I used to accuse him of being closet straight and desperately overacting, which he thought was very funny. And we just liked each other. I'd walk into the recording studio, and he'd bellow across the room, "That's the one I want, the little screenwriter with the big eyes." And we'd go to lunch.
Oh, that's so cute.
He's a nice man, a brilliant actor, with an astonishing stage history.
Yeah.
He'd been, among other things, if I remember, the original English language version of Waiting for Godot.
Oh, wow, cool.
And a number of plays of that caliber.
Wow.
I also remember him as we left the restaurant to go back to the studio, snatching me back because I'd walked directly in front of a bus.
Oh.
I learned to drive in England, for God's sake, on a motor scooter, but it had been a long time. I'd forgotten that thing about the English driving on the left. And I walked straight, blindly, without even looking to my left, and Peter grabbed me and snatched me back, just looked at me, and said, "We lose more Americans like that."
Oh gosh, that is so crazy.
I like remembering it. That was, for me, the high point.
So you were in some of the voice recording sessions for The Lord of the Rings then?
Yes.
Did you meet Anthony Daniels?
Yes, I did.
So you've met C-3PO?
Well, I met him at Tony Daniels, who was 31 and looked 19.
Yeah, I imagine he did. I've seen the photos,
And was complaining that he never got an adult part, so to speak. Now I gather that he's in the 60s, traveling occasionally with the things Tolkien.
Yes.
And with things Star Wars-ish, rather.
Always.
And complaining that he never gets a part suitable to his age. Or rather, he does get parts suitable to his age, but he never gets to play anybody younger than his age.
Oh, yes.
Still looks young.
Do androids age? That's I wonder.
That's an interesting question.
But do they dream?
Do they dream of electric sheep? Yes, that's another question.
Altogether.
Altogether.
There's a question in the chat room.
Yes.
Ken's Ramsey is saying that my cat's ears perk up when Peter speaks. Do you have any cats?
I have had many cats in my life. When I lived in the country and had houses, I live in an apartment now, 3 rooms and no cat. However, there have been a lot of cats. I've, God knows, buried a lot of them. And I have there's a cat in The Last Unicorn only because she happened to be asleep in my desk when I was writing that chapter. I just wrote her in. That's the way that book came about.
Really? You just wrote her in?
She wasn't a pirate. She was a shoulder cat. She liked to drop on you out of the rafters. It'd be the soft little plop on your shoulder, no claws.
Oh, how cute.
And she'd just ride you through the house.
Did she have a little patch or a little color of fur?
She was I described her in the book, as a matter of fact, as a little copper and ashes cat with a crooked ear.
Oh,
Her name was Zoe.
oh, that's beautiful.
And, there were a lot of cats, but there was one for 15 years who would come and get me if I wasn't at work at a certain time. His name was Gully Jimson, after Joyce Carey's crazy painter. And he was half Siamese, quarter Burmese, and all black. Mr. Cat in Tamsin.
Yes.
It's definitely based on him.
Oh, okay, in Tamsin. Yeah, I love that.
And Gully would meow around my ankles in a distinctly Siamese sound. And I'd follow him. All right, I can't have a second cup of coffee. I'd follow him down to my office, which was in a barn. And very importantly, he has tail in the air. And he'd hop up on my desk. I'd sit down and we'd go to work. He could come and go through the window, but I had to be there. Cats like people to stay where they left them.
Yes, yes, they do.
And I remember him with great fondness. There was a cat you could set your clock by.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
I will say one thing. Once he didn't pick me up or come and get me, which was puzzling, I went down to my office and found him at the outside door, the two, coming in from the barn or from the outside. And he was outside going round and round with a weasel.
Oh.
He was big and black, and the weasel was a little red thing, half his size, and it was between rounds. They were panting and glaring at each other. The weasel had a hurt paw. My cat wasn't hurt at all, and I didn't want him to be. I didn't want the weasel hurt either.
Oh.
So I snatched him up and took him into the office, which was fine with him. He regarded it as a TKO. I won. and he set about washing himself. But that weasel stayed outside my office for a good 15 minutes, chattering and screaming and daring that cat to come out and fight like a man.
Oh, really?
Ever since then, I have never used weasel as a synonym for cowardice. These creatures have no reverse gear.
That's true. That is true.
He gave no quarter. He finally gave up, went home.
He still wanted to fight.
He still wanted to fight. I was just getting warmed up.
So cool.
Joe and Sarah from New York say, hello, Peter. Our ferrets are avidly watching right now.
I also had ferrets in my time, and I had an office ferret named Tamsin. As it happened, Tamsin Amanda.
How cute.
Ferrets have to have pretty names.
Yes.
And she had to share the office with the cat. She was originally in the house, but she discovered that when my eyes were open, I was awake. And if I was awake, I could feed her. So every now and then I wake up with delicate little ferret paws trying to open my eyes.
Oh, really?
She went down to the barn. She and the cat didn't like each other, but there was an armed truce. You could see them nose to nose, him twice her size. She saying, if I didn't have really important things to do right now, like dragging my Superman doll around my far corner, you could always tell where she was by the legs by Superman's legs.
Yeah.
I could eat you like a potato chip. And he was dealing with her the way he dealt with practically everything, by being superior to it. You don't exist. I'm sorry if you think you do.
Yeah.
But I've just risen above you.
Oh, brilliant! Now, your Lord of the Rings experiences with that script, did that happen before or after you wrote that front page piece for the Ballantine Books edition?
That front page thing was written in 1973.
Okay, so that was before.
Yeah, that was definitely before.
Okay. You guys have seen Peter Beagle's opening, beautiful introduction opening page in every 1970s, edition of The Lord of the Rings that Ballantine Books published here in America, which was the copy that I had. So it's kind of funny. I was reading your words before I was reading Tolkien's words, as was meant to happen.
I wrote that because Judy Lindell Ray, whom I loved, called me from New York to say, we're putting out a new edition of Lord of the Rings, and we need a new introduction. I'll be in my office for about an hour and a half. Oh. Okay. All right, Judy then. Which was the basis of our relationship. Oh, yeah, okay, Judy then. And I stomped around my office for about an hour or so, and then wrote that out and called her, and she said, that'll do.
That'll do.
And that was that. However, I was in Los Angeles, as it happens, when those books, that new edition was issued on the streets. I was waiting for a bus, and I saw a young woman sitting at the bench, also waiting for the bus, and she had a copy of The Lord of the Rings, the new edition.
Oh, the new one. Okay.
And I couldn't help it. I sidled over to her and said diffidently, I've got a foreword in that book. She gave me a look. But she did turn the page to find it. What I didn't know was that with that first issue, about half of them had the foreword. Half of them didn't.
Oh.
I leave it to your viewers to guess which one she had.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
She gave me another look, and I sidled away from there as fast as I had sidled up.
Thinking that was the lamest pickup line ever.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of
Great.
writers, both book and screenwriters, say always lament that it was easier back when to get something published or get a film made. Do you feel that it's any easier to get anything made?
It was never easier. People often ask me my advice for an aspiring writer, and I say first drop the word aspiring. That's basic. You're not talking about writing. You're talking about publishing, and they're two different things. Publishing is a business.
Yes.
Writing is creative. Sometimes they mesh, but not all that often.
Yes.
Just don't confuse them. Just because, and I've said this often, every one of you out there knows that just because a book is published doesn't mean it's any good. And vice versa. Just because your story was not accepted doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that nobody could think of a way to make money out of it.
Right.
And actually, I think it's a lot, in strange ways, it's a lot easier to be published, or at least to be out there, to be seen, than it ever was in the days before the internet. Publishing has changed so fast in the last 5 years, let alone 10.
Yes.
I'm a gog. I'm a dinosaur. I started out in the old-fashioned world when publishing was, so to speak, a gentleman's business, meaning there were hardly any women involved in it. And you submitted through your agent. Every now and then something came in over the transom, as they'd say, without an agent. And then it would be added to the slush pile. And there would be an editor in charge of the slush pile, usually a junior editor.
Yes.
And every now and then he'd come across an absolute jewel. And some books did get picked out of the slush pile. Not to mention, the story is perfectly true about something like Dune going to at least 27 publishers.
Dune. Frank Herbert's.
Frank Herbert's Dune.
Yes.
And finally being published by Chilton, a company which usually published automobile manuals.
Chilton. I remember. I used to have, and I'm sorry that I've lost it, but I used to have an original Chilton Books hardcover first edition of Dune.
I've seen them.
Gosh, I wish I still had that now.
What I had was How to Keep Your Volkswagen Alive.
that was their publishing too,
Yeah,
right?
that was their major industry. But what I'm saying is that I think it's easier than it used to be, which doesn't affect quality very much. But at least there are things published now, or on the internet, or through Amazon, or simply practically on email, that never would have been seen. Not all that long ago. And I'm fascinated by it all. I want to see what happens next.
What do you think of the proliferation of female writers at the turn of the century? I mean, you got J.K. Rowling and all the movies nowadays, Divergent series, everything is... do you think something shifted in the marketplace, or...?
As far as I'm concerned, it couldn't happen to a nicer sex to begin with. But secondly, no, it's no easier than it was. It may look like that. But I've met screenwriters, women, who are already, and they, for God's sake, they're kids. They're not even 30, and they're already lying about their age. Because of the ageism of that marketplace.
Yes, yes.
And we're not even talking about Gamergate.
Yes, that's true. That I found that very interesting.
There's
The
one.
Gamergate phenomenon. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So no, I don't think it's any easier for women than it's ever been. I just think they're stubborner than they were, and good for them.
Yes. Well, I think it's about adaptation right now. Everything that was a good book or was a good comic book is now being adapted to the major league, film medium, or Broadway musicals as another adaptation to another big medium.
True.
There's a segue for us. So, but what is it? You worked on adaptation of The Lord of the Rings. Very tricky, difficult. Peter Jackson and his co-writers, Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens, they did a pretty gung-ho Lord of the Rings adaptation about 12 or 15 years ago. Now, have you seen the new Hobbit films?
I've seen the first one.
The first one.
And I'm not in a hurry to see the other two, because The Lord of the Rings was one thing.
Yes.
But
yes.
to inflate The Hobbit, and I mean inflate,
Mm-hmm.
to
Yes.
the point of grotesquerie,
Mm-hmm.
it just saddens my heart.
I think there's something to that. The Lord of the Rings was an exercise in condensation and making sure that they could fit The Lord of the Rings into 3 films. But with The Hobbit, the writers' efforts were adapting outward and expanding it instead of condensing.
And
Was that was the main problem, do you think?
oh God, yes.
Yeah.
At least I certainly do. The how do you describe it? It's the old American thing. God knows he's a New Zealander. He's not even American, but it's capitalism. If this much is profitable, that much be 3 times as profitable.
True.
And I say that with real sadness, because Peter Jackson did a wonderful thing having to do with that first Hobbit.
Mm-hmm.
I have old friends, Melissa Kern and Chris Kern.
Mm-hmm.
Melissa has ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, which has left her almost motionless, speechless. She communicates with Chris with eye blinks.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of us, Chris got about 4,000 of us together, I think it was, and we all wrote to Peter Jackson, asking if Melissa Kern could possibly be in this movie of the book she loved so much, by the writer she loved so much and had done so much to popularize. And within a couple of weeks, they heard back. Absolutely. Of course she can be in the movie.
Oh.
They sent a plane to pick up Chris and Melissa to bring to New Zealand.
Wow.
There was a van waiting for them, equipped to deal with as much as possible with someone with Melissa's problem.
Wow.
They were taken all over the place. They were given the grand tour of both islands and the sets, everything to do with all the rest of it.
Oh, fantastic.
And they are in that first scene of The Hobbit, the Green Dragon.
Yes.
The Hobbit's laughing and talking about outside the Green Dragon.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like what he's done with The Hobbit, but Peter Jackson is okay with me.
Very well said. Very good.
But
Now-
haven't you had any of that pressure in your career of like, oh, you've got something successful, can you do more of that, more sequel?
No, so far there is a sequel to The Last Unicorn,
2 Hearts.
which I'm very proud of.
Yes.
But no, it'll be interesting to see what happens, because The Last Unicorn, with the exception perhaps of Barry Hewitt's Master Lee books, it's the only real, you should excuse the expression, classic fantasy that hasn't been filmed or hasn't been inflated.
Yes.
And once a live-action version happens, I do think it will.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be here for it.
Yes, of course.
Then I think people who only focus, studios who only focus on The Last Unicorn, might be looking at A Fine and Private Place, might be looking at Tamsin.
Yes.
In the immortal words of Fats Waller, one never know, do one?
It's true. You have Connor, your publishing friend Connor, who I spoke with. Would it be okay to talk about one of the future projects you have related to The Last Unicorn that you guys have in development?
I'm very cautious. Usually when we do this on stage,
Yes.
let's just hand it off to Connor.
You just hand it off to him and let him delicately.
Yes.
Okay.
And right now it is delicate because
It is.
it is delicate because there are lawyers involved.
Yes, that's right.
That's just basic.
Yes, there are always lawyers involved, but you also have, a wonderful, talented musician, a woman who I'm very, very, very fond of. She's a local Angelino, one of Southern California's finest, and I'm just excited about the possibility that this wonderful musician is bringing her love, her fandom to you in order to possibly collaborate with you on a future version of The Last Unicorn. I'm so excited about that. Oh, even I should say, the possibilities about that, just the possibilities. I think it's
Do
fascinating.
you know, I've been on the road and nobody tells me nothing.
Really?
Who is this wonderful person?
Oh, really? Oh, see, you really have been on the road. You remember the pop band Black Eyed Peas?
Oh, I know who we're talking about.
And now
of course.
Fergie. And Miss
Of course.
Fergie.
Sorry, I went blank.
It's okay. No, of course.
With age, Miss Fergie
Well, yeah.
is a delight.
Miss Fergie loves The Last
I
Unicorn.
know she does.
I know.
I
I'm
know she does.
so
And
excited that she loves it.
I'm very excited indeed about that. And I've met her.
Yes.
We've
Mhm.
cut up a rug or two from.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Well,
She's great.
She's such fun to be around.
Yeah, absolutely.
And her husband is possibly the only movie star I've ever met, except Gregory Peck,
Mm.
who truly looks like a movie star. I suspect it's a problem crossing streets.
Yeah, I bet. Well, the explosion of really good stories from book to large format stage musicals, there's a pattern. I mean, we saw it happen with Gregory Maguire's Wicked.
Right.
And we've seen it happen with, lots of other...
The producers.
Yeah, of course.
Billy
Billy Elliot. Even our friend Sting, just at the Kennedy Center honors. Well, I just realized, oh gosh, yeah, he just did this Broadway musical about the shipyards where he grew up.
Yes, yeah.
Not that it was a commercial success, but it was really
It
great.
intrigued me. That one I'd like to have seen.
Me too. So we have a real established pattern of rock and pop stars going from one arena, the recording industry, going to the stage. U2 provided all this music for the short-lived Spider-Man musical, where all those stunt workers, got injured so badly.
Yes.
You remember that?
So indeed.
Yeah, the idea that Fergie wants to sit down and have conversations with you about, possible, future project that is Last Unicorn, it's just such an exciting thing.
When we had
So exciting
we had
to
dinner
me.
for the first time, we talked about songwriting.
Yeah.
And because I grew up in New York theater, around New York theater, my favorite cousin, whom I'm hoping to see while I'm in LA, choreographed Hair.
Yeah.
And this is somebody I grew up with, her and her sister.
Yeah.
And my heroes were always people like Lorenz Hart, Frank Lesser, the Master, Noel Coward, Dorothy Fields,
Oh, yes.
Carolyn Lee,
Uh-huh.
wonderful. These really were my heroes. The best of them were poets in their own way, because great lyrics are like light verse. Cole Porter was another one.
Yeah.
And I always wanted, not deep down, I spoke right out about it, always wanted to write the lyrics, or be involved with the lyrics for a Broadway show, just to see if I can do it. I write songs constantly, I love doing that, but Broadway's different.
Yes.
Broadway's specific.
Yes.
Broadway's for a particular moment.
Seamless recitative.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
that's what they want. That's
Exactly.
what. Yeah, yeah.
I've read Stephen Sondheim's 2 books,
Yeah.
which are absolute masterclasses in how you do this.
Essential. Absolutely.
Question from the chat. Would you like to see the Innkeeper's Song make it to film or stage?
At the moment, there are a couple of young guys working earnestly on developing it into a television series. I have no idea whether it'll happen, but I love the notion. And because that's my favorite of my own books, I'm very tender of it. However it gets developed, I'd just like to see it happen. And in case you're out there, Nicole Behari, you would be my first choice to play my love.
I have a question from the live hotline, because not only do we have chatters in the chat room, we have a live hotline. And someone has asked, a friend of mine from Los Angeles has asked, you never did write a second part to Bakshi's LOTR. You didn't even draft a second part. No, never got around to that.
Get around to it, hell, I'm a firm disciple of Sami Khan's wonderful response when he was asked, which comes first, the words or the music? And without hesitation, Khan replied, the check.
Exactly.
No check, no part 2.
Exactly. No ticky, no laundry.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jack Nicholson. I'm sorry. I love that line. It's just great. Another question. Molly Grew has always been a role model for me. Was there any?
Thank you.
Well, yes. And this is an anonymous question going on to say, was there any particular inspiration behind the character of Molly Grew?
On the one hand,
And she's one of my favorite characters.
me too.
Yeah.
No Molly, no book.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
On the one hand, I grew up around strong women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like my choreographer cousins, like my mother,
Mm-hmm.
like my Aunt Rose, the adventuress, and others. It never occurred to me that women weren't strong. It didn't occur to me that women were supposed to be confined to the household. Every one of them I knew weren't. And on the other hand, I have no idea where Molly comes from. Molly was just there, a thin thorn of a woman. First words, I'll not have it, Cully, the soup's no thicker than sweat as it is. Bam! She was there like a nail in the wall.
Yeah.
And I sometimes go back to a line from, of all things, a funny thing happened on the way to the forum.
Zero Mostel.
And more to the point, Larry Gelbart writing the script.
Oh, yes, yes.
And there's Senex. I think John Carradine? No, John Carradine played the pimp. But not David Byrne. I can't think. But in any case, Senex, through a misunderstanding, has a beautiful young courtesan throw herself into his arms. Right? Take me, I never can be yours, but take me. And Senex, following her into the house, just looks up at the heavens and says meekly to the gods, whichever one of you did this, thank you. What's the way I feel about Molly in the heavens? Whoever gave her to me, thank you. As I said, no Molly and it's over.
Yeah, I agree. She feels Molly and her dialogue is so powerful and so resonant to me. And still, I'm a fan too. Sorry, I've got to say this. I mean, we can talk all day about our particular love of these characters. Do you have one character within the realm of The Last Unicorn and Two Hearts? One character that you just love, you really just love?
Well, all of them have something of me in them. Every one of them, including Haggard.
Including Lord Knight.
Oh yeah, no question. But if I had to pick one who's as close as I'm ever going to get to autobiography, it would be the butterfly. The butterfly
Really?
is a sketch of the inside of my head at 23, which is when I started writing the book.
Wow.
And he's still representative, so to speak. There's a reason that, I reached back for a line from the funny thing happened on the way to the forum. I really do have original thoughts, just from time to time. But I've read so much and met so many people, and being, how do I describe this? Poetry, theater, literature, that was what kept me company during a lonely childhood. I thank God, three friends just as weird as I was. But I spent a lot of time by myself, telling myself stories. I will still walk along the street reciting poetry, just to make sure I don't forget it, just for the sound of it. That was why meeting Christopher Lee for the first time.
Wow.
Christopher read everything too.
Yes.
And we discovered, and my son was a witness, he was 15 at the time, we discovered that we knew between us all the lines of a G.K. Chesterton poem. I remember Christopher started, I forget how it happened. Before the Roman came to Rye or out to Severn strode, the rolling English drunkard made the rolling English road. And I picked it up, and from there, a merry road, a mazy road that rambled round the shire. And after him the parson ran, the sexton and the squire. And we went off, we all had to pee. Can you imagine Christopher Lee in the acoustics of a men's room?
Yes, doing that. How funny!
We went
Gosh,
through
how
We went
funny!
through the whole damn poem. I knew no harm of Bonaparte and plenty of the squire, and for to fight the Frenchmen I did not much desire. But I did bash their bagonets because they came arrayed to straighten out the crooked road an English drunkard made.
That's great. There's so many times when guys are not willing to admit the conversations they have in public restrooms with other guys. That's really good, Peter. That's very good. A lot of people won't even admit that. So there's so much happening. Another question came in asking, are you going to write more books? The answer I know is obviously
Bloody yes.
bloody yes. Yes.
Yes, I have one novel, needs one more pass through. I have stories that are almost right, I've been in a dark place or a dark spot, if you like, for a couple of years. But all I know to deal with places like that is to go back to work.
Yes, sir. Well said.
You have a great voice. Have you ever done any voiceover?
No, I'd love to. I've never been asked. I've worked as a singer, and I've done some acting, only when asked.
But your voice never made it into like the animated Lord of the Rings since you were around there?
Nothing like that. I've truly never been asked.
Another question from Pure Romance. I've always wondered, but never had a chance to ask. Was there a specific inspiration for Mommy Fortuna?
Actually, no. It was just, again, she's there in an early version of the book, the lost last unicorn, so to speak. Although it's not lost, it's been published.
Yeah.
But no, I was really no, except that I have known a fair number of people, I have a touch of it myself, who so badly want to be in show business. It's like, Mommy Fortuna is a knowledgeable woman. She knows perfectly well that she's a third-rate hack with no real talent. She knows that. But she's like the man in the old joke who suggested that maybe after 40 years of cleaning up behind the elephants at the circus, he might want to look for a more fulfilling job. To which he responds, "What, and quit show business?" I actually have that line in there.
That is so great. If you guys want to find full details about Peter's tour of The Last Unicorn, you guys need to be reminded this is a beautiful, fully restored, and you've never seen the movie look as good as you'll see it now, fully restored 2K digital print that they're taking around the country. You go to the website lastunicorntour.com.
And should any of you somehow encounter, and she lives in New York, Tammy Grimes, who's 80 now, and whom I desperately want to meet. I've seen her on stage, I've seen her in cabaret and musicals. I just want to thank her for the heart she gave to Molly.
Yes, yeah, I love her readings of the dialogue, so amazing.
I just want to say thank you.
Yes, thanked. There's tonight's performance here in Southern California. We've got another few nights. You guys were in North Hollywood. You were just in downtown. You were just in Encino, right?
No, we're getting to Encino.
You're getting to Encino. Okay, tonight we're in Buena Park, right near Knott's Scary Farm, although it's not scary right now. But I do love the Halloween event there. Then we're going to be in Encino tomorrow on Wednesday.
That's right.
And then in Pasadena at the Lemley Playhouse 7 on Thursday the 15th. And another big event in Oxnard, California on Friday. And then an even bigger event, which would be very exciting because you guys have so much response to this. You had to book another theater, and you've got an extension to another auditorium. This will be at the Lemley Royal Movie Theater in West Los Angeles, this coming Saturday, January 17th, at 10 o'clock and 10:30 a.m. Those are morning matinees, family events. Bring everybody, bring the family. Those little ones who have never seen The Last Unicorn, it's time. It's definitely time. It's very exciting. And then, wow, Clovis. And then, whoa, in March you're going to be in Tucson. Got to run off to Arizona in March.
Right, I get February off. I just found that out, and I'm absolutely thrilled.
That's great.
It'd be nice to introduce myself to the people who live with me.
Yeah, of course.
And maybe get some writing done. It's hard to work on the road. When I'm on the road, when I've been on the road this time, I've been trying to keep a diary of where we've been and what we've done. It's just ordinary, often rambling.
That's the
But
best.
I've kept up with it.
That's great. I would like to see the light of day, learning your anecdotes and your stories about this national tour and the people you've met. It's about time for Peter to begin his meet and greet and audience author signing. He's going to do autographs and signings with the people who are arriving for the 7 o'clock show. So we're going to let you go in just a few minutes here.
Well, let's do a rapid fire.
Let's do a rapid fire. A couple of quick rapid fire questions for you. Let's see.
I'll start.
As a friend of mine used to say, let us proceed with our procedure.
Let us begin.
All right.
Okay. Let's begin.
I got a few.
You got a few?
Favorite Lord of the Rings book?
I mean, I simply think of it as one thing Tolkien did. Tolkien thought of the whole thing as one book. It was just that
That's right.
paper shortage necessitated the 3 volumes.
That's right. Good answer.
Okay. Favorite Lord of the Rings film?
I guess, for lack of anything else, the Peter Jackson one, which is as good a Lord of the Rings version as it's ever going to be, but it just never quite matches up to the one that's playing in your head all the time. It can't.
True.
Favorite character in Middle-earth?
In Middle-earth, I have a peculiar soft spot for the guy who wasn't even in the movie, Tom Bombadil.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. All right. Further rapid fire questions. Okay. Digital animation or hand-drawn animation?
Remember, I am not an expert in animation. Given a choice, I'll go for hand-drawn.
Okay.
Perhaps because I was raised with it,
Yeah.
but I know wonderful things can be done digitally. But I'm still a sucker for the old style.
Me too. Okay. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Trek by far.
There you go.
I was taken to a special screening of Star Wars by Julie Lindell Ray, as a matter of fact, in 1977.
Mm-hmm.
I very nearly fell asleep. She kept digging an elbow into my ribs.
Really?
Honest to God. Star Trek, well, I did a script for it.
Yeah, of course. You guys do know that Peter wrote an excellent script for The Next Generation. You know that.
And I've been kissed by Lieutenant Uhura.
Wow.
I rest my case.
Oh, yes. There you go.
Scripts or books?
What? Scripts or books? Books.
Okay. Country or jazz?
Well, that's interesting. Country jazz, and I say that because you get a country musician like my old hero Jerry Reed, who was a great jazz musician as well.
Really?
Reed had a sound that, and a sense of harmony. It was very much jazz. And someone like, good Lord, Herb Ellis, who was from Texas. Herb Ellis is considered one of the great jazz guitarists, and he's on any number of country recordings, credited or not. So you can't separate those two. That Bob Wills in the 1930s, Bob Wills filled his country jazz band, his country band with jazz musicians.
Yeah, he did. He did. I never thought of that. That's very well. Those jazz musicians can do anything. They're so versatile.
And Johnny Gimble, I hope is still alive. Johnny Gimble was a great fiddler and a great mandolin player. Could play anything.
Yeah.
I got one album where he's on viola.
Oh, cool. Really cool. Okay. Regular or decaf?
I haven't drunk much coffee I haven't drunk nearly as much coffee as I used to. I used to go through 9 cups of strong percolator brewed coffee in the morning.
Wow, that's a lot.
Is that your best tip for aspiring writers?
No, in my case, I started getting heart fibrillations, so I cut it down to 2, and there I go long stretches, where I haven't drunk coffee at all, but definitely regular.
Is there one kind of tip for aspiring writers?
I just got that question too.
Either book or script that you found worked for you and you didn't expect it?
I'm going to say that very clearly because I say it a lot when I'm on stage. You drop the word aspiring. If you're writing, you're a writer. You're talking about publishing, which is a different thing altogether, as I've said. But if you're writing, you're a writer. And there are a lot of us out there. And I like to think of a great sports writer of my youth, whom I've talked about on stage, Red Smith, who wrote for the New York Herald Tribune, and who wrote English as well as anybody has. Smith says somewhere, writing's easy. All you do is roll a sheet of paper into the typewriter, and you sit and stare at it until the little drops of blood start to appear on your forehead. Then you're writing. And I can vouch for that. And one thing also, that might come in useful. Hard is good. If it's hard, that's okay. Too hard is not good. Too hard, and only you can make the distinction. But too hard means it doesn't want to be written that way. So you have to back off and look at the completely different way of doing it and see if that works. It took me years to learn that. Well, I'm passing it on to you for free.
Live.
Very nice.
Live
on TheOneRing.net. So, Peter, let us go and accompany you and take you down to meet your adoring fans, shall we?
By all means, but always remember, do not get in the way of an elderly gentleman who needs to pee. Children get trampled. I need to do that first.
All right. Well, if we have a good signal, we're going to keep on broadcasting. Go ahead, Peter. Travis and those folks are looking for you right down there. How much can I help you carry?
Yes.
Right there. So, we'll see you in a bit. Ladies and gentlemen, look at the fans. Fans are starting to gather. They're coming here tonight to see a beautiful restored print of The Last Unicorn.
Turn around.
And they're doing this.
Turn around.
They're doing this special event all across the country, and I'm not sure. Somebody on the chat room had sent us a question about going to Canada, and I don't know if they are even ready to make an announcement yet about going to Canada, but I'll see if I can find out more details. They're going to finish a very long tour schedule through all of the following states. Wait, hold on. They are going to be in other countries. Starting in February, it looks like they're going to be in Austria, and the Czech Republic, and Germany, and Switzerland, and then all back across the country. Then in the year 2015, which we've now arrived at, obviously, in the summertime, July and August, they'll be in France, the UK, Spain, Ireland, and Italia. They'll be in Italy as well. Wow, I don't see Canada listed here on these tour dates. So it is yet an unknown commodity when Peter will get around to bringing The Last Unicorn. But this is exciting to see people starting to arrive. And you're going to go on down there, Mr. Peter Beagle. Let's walk on down. Let's go see. Let's go walk down.
I don't know how